All right. So one of the things that a lot of people have questions on is I've gotten a lot of questions lately on guys that are using conversion varnishes or pre-cat, and they're like, what's the benefits of, polyurethane? So if you could talk about what you see, what you would suggest to people wanting to make the move to polyurethanes, what the advantages are over the other type of technologies that are out there.
All right. Well, let's start from the beginning again, where polyurethanes in general, historically, they were really meant to sound very complicated and also be very expensive. So it kind of kept people away from it. They really used them more as a project-driven type of coating, to where if they needed something specific, maybe an exterior or high gloss, they may be more interested in leaning that way to them. But they've actually really become an everyday coating. That's what they're meant for. Especially in Europe, they're used every day. Some of the benefits and stuff that you start to get to when you venture into a polyurethane, well, one, they fit the mentality of a North American finisher better than any coating I've ever seen. Extremely user-friendly. Again, just really fit the way our thinking process works when it comes to coating. Very basic. And more than anything, they're non-problematic. That's the way they're meant to be. So that alone is a great benefit if you have a non-problematic coating, and it really fits the mentality of how you work. That's number one. It really is nice that way. Now, when we start getting into all of the little features and benefits where they excel, well, there's many. Somebody who is using conversion varnish and they used it regularly, and especially may have been using it for the last couple decades, polyurethane really offers a whole new world to that customer. What ends up happening is you'll hear me say the saying, the right tool for the job. Urethanes have that. There's just a right tool for the job for everything. And that means you have interior coatings, exterior coatings, and you have solvent-based and water-based in both of those categories. So it's a matter of what you actually want to do. So when I say the right tool for the job, you have a variety of coatings to pick from, especially with what is happening in today's market with designers, architects, and builders. Our coatings are changing rapidly. The looks and the trends keep changing. We keep going through all kinds of different designs. And if you've been out in the field, sometimes your standard coatings don't really deliver what the client is actually asking for. And so too many times we end up trying to take the wrong product and make it do something that it really wasn't intended to do from the beginning. That's where urethanes come into play. Is yes, there are general products, standard products you can use every day, but then there's also going to be just handfuls and handfuls of products that are going to fit the niche to exactly what you need, and also do the project much faster, more efficient, more cost effective. And for examples for that, I have a couple. First one is the biggest trend that's out there right now is natural look. I can't tell you how many times I'm in a shop and they're doing something. The customer just requires something, to me, just completely natural. They don't want the wood to change. They don't want anything. They really just want some protection on the wood. And that's where the natural look product comes into play, because too many people have tried to take a standard dull product, maybe a 5 sheen, something lower, and they'll spray the wood. And yes, they're going to get a very low sheen look. But more times than not, it will also wet the wood. So now the wood pops. It's not as necessarily as muted out as the customer necessarily wanted. So I've had customers like, oh man, we just can't achieve this. Well, they also didn't know there's a product for that. And when that actually kind of, you present that to them, well, obviously it makes your life a whole lot easier when you find out, oh man, there was a product for that. That scenario, I can't tell you, happens over and over when it comes to polyurethanes. Again, there are standard general products that you would just use on a daily basis over and over. You wouldn't step out of the box. But at the same time, urethanes will also offer all of those products that are outside of the box, so that it just gives you a whole lot of versatility to your arsenal and also your offerings to your customer. I know we just spoke about, okay, some of the differences. And again, we can get into even greater differences between a conversion varnish and a urethane. But also let's start talking about the greater picture here is just selling features. How are you going to separate yourself from a 500 square foot shop or a 500,000 square foot shop if they're all using the same coating? Well, that's where polyurethane comes into play. You actually have a person in a 500 square foot shop using these who's setting themselves apart from the competition, and you still have 500,000 square foot shops that gravitate towards the same technology for the very same reason. They need new selling features for their customer. That could be something more durable, more chemical resistant, a specific look, whatever that may be. That's where the urethanes really excel. I can't really kind of tout them enough in that arena. Also, like I said, my biggest area would be selling features. As an end user, and you're doing jobs for clients, how are you setting yourself apart anymore? You got to put some selling features back in there, and this is where it really comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to kind of double back for a second because you brought up something that is important for finishers to hear. And I get criticized a lot, believe it or not, because people are like, why do you use so many coatings? Like, you should just stick with one thing. And I got to be honest with you, in today's world, to me, that's something of the past. Like, you can't just pick a coating and that's what you put on everything, because of exactly what you're saying. The demands of the market are changing. And if you don't know what's out there, and you don't know what products work in certain situations, you're at a big disadvantage. And talking about that, a couple of things I want to bring up when you talk about the natural look is that a lot of these natural looks, not only do they do that, but they also give you that ability that a standard coating will not do, in terms of, like, they hold tight to the wood. So they flow into like an oak or a white oak, and they don't give you that half filled, half not filled look, which saves you a ton of time, because most of these situations, 2 coats and you're done.
Yeah, on what you're referring to specifically on the natural look, yeah, you're absolutely right. These are typically products that are built with, they're built intentionally with a little bit lower solids. And what you're talking about is correct. They are going to hug extremely tight to the pores of the wood. So especially with open grain woods, whether it's a oak, a mahogany, or even walnut or something, when you're spraying that in there, you just end up with such a beautiful look at the end, because your coating is going to really hold tight to the pores. It'll give you, like you said, a very open grain finish, so you're not, again, in that hybrid state where you're kind of half filled and half not. 2 coats, you're done. Even if you needed to do another one or a 4th coat, you still would be okay. You're not going to go crazy with the build, but again, delivers exactly what the customer would be looking for at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you just hit another point that I want to talk about. We're talking about mill thicknesses and builds. So with conversion varnish, you're pretty much stuck. You've got a certain mill that you can build to. You go over that, you risk the issue of the coating after a while. Like, it could go 6 months to a year and just completely shatter. With the polyurethanes, you can stack a whole lot more on without issue.
When it comes to, you had mentioned build, that's kind of one area where they can excel. With urethanes, the nice thing is you are able to get a hard surface with extreme flexibility, and you can put on much more build than you typically can with a conversion varnish. So again, those are again more benefits, because we're talking about all the benefits that they offer. These are, again, all the little I could say the little things that are in the bucket that really mean a lot. Even when we're talking about stiles and rails, if you're doing a pigmented finish, typically that's a very vulnerable area with most coatings. With urethane, much less susceptible to having any type of hairline little cracks and fractures and stuff that come through miters and joints and rails. Again, another benefit. It's just that they keep going on and on that way. Other application benefits that you can see would be, obviously there's build. Clarity is a real big one with urethanes. You can really start piling on the coats and you will have just crystal clear vision going all the way down to that wood. I mean, so you don't get the haziness or any type of milkiness. That's another good benefit. You can put on a lot of build. One great thing that we always gloss over, they're formaldehyde free, especially with today's environment. It's also just helpful to throw that out there. It's just nice when your coating's formaldehyde free, and all polyurethanes are formaldehyde free, both the water-based and solvent-based. Your mixing ratios are just have a little bit better tolerance, meaning if there's anybody who's listening to us right now and they are a conversion varnish user, well, then I'm sure all of them listening know that, hey, and it's very foreign to them to be playing with mixing ratios, because they know that, look, if you over catalyze or you under catalyze on a conversion varnish, you will run into a world of issues. Whether it's drying too hard, we could have a smell, off-gassing, or not catalyzed enough, now it's not hard enough, so forth and so on. So there are a variety of ramifications if you are not on that exact mixing ratio. With urethanes, your tolerance is actually just a little bit greater than that, where, okay, if you accidentally over-catalyzed or under-catalyzed, we're not in that huge world of ramifications. You know, it's almost like again, when I said, hey, it kind of fits our mentality. Again, in most cases, and I'm not going to say this is in general for everything. If you were to over-catalyze or under-catalyze, you're not altering the state of that coating to where it's an unusable product, or you've actually set it up to where now there's problems during the application procedure. If at anything, yes. Did the coating get altered? Yes. Could you have made it maybe a little bit stronger, or maybe not as strong as it could have been? Yes, but not in any type of ramification where that would actually cause problems to your end result. That's where, for me, those are huge benefits. I mean, look, in my past, I've had a contract finishing shop, and I was a hybrid between conversion varnish and urethane for a variety of different reasons. And this goes back quite, a while ago. But the urethanes are what started solving a lot of my historical problems. And then I'm pretty sure you'll probably bring it up shortly here, which would be pot life. Pot life is really, if anything, would probably be the only thing you sacrifice, or would be a learning curve, something to get around. Yes, most of your polyurethanes are going to have a pot life between 2 to 6 hours. We do have pot life that are 24 hours. Not all products are like that.
Right.
So if anything, there's going to be a learning curve for anybody. I would say it would be pot lives, but the features and benefits so far outweigh that to me, it's almost an insignificant thought in the end, because your features and benefits just far outweigh a pot life at that point.
Yeah. And kind of what I recommend guys doing is, the first time you do a job with the polyurethane, just mix it in a smaller batch. Like, you got a whole kitchen to do, mix half a gallon up and see how far that gets you. And then you can start getting an idea of how much you're going to have or not have. Different than if you're using a conversion varnish, because you're going to have waste with that too. You can't always, stack it perfectly.
Yes. No, you're right. 100%. Now, I know there's people listening, and they're going to have, way different views on it and stuff. It's just, if you're looking at, again, just the progression of coatings, because again, we've talked about a lot, even just now, as far as, the versatility of the coatings, right tool for the job, not just being stuck with one coating anymore.
Yeah.
But there are going to be shops that literally it's literally the only thing they're doing is changing a sheen, and it's one product that almost does everything. I'm on board with that as well. So don't think that we're so naive that that doesn't exist. What we're doing, and what I'm really talking about, is the progression of coatings of how we kind of keep progressing, and again, keeping selling features in there, keeping up to date with the market. But at the same time, there's going to be the shops that, again, we call them, blow and go shops that do tremendous work. awesome work. But yeah, they will fall into that category of maybe only a couple products and then all the time. Guess what? They exist as well. They're there, they blow and go. And then at the same time, you just have again, the option of just everything. Whether if your clientele is going to be very versatile, where you get quite a lot of different jobs thrown at you, well then yeah, urethane to me is the way to go, because you have a lot of options to actually deliver or to give to the customer. If you are more of a production shop and it is that same thing over and over, well, the only thing I do encourage shops like that to do is, well, okay, still there can typically be a coating that still might make your job a little bit better. It might have more build if that's what it could do. It may cut out a coat, whatever it may be. So I still encourage those shops to still always be looking for the better products, because the advancement in our coatings continue all the time. So that's all I'm kind of really getting at, more of the progression, staying more on the cutting edge, but not to say that, look, we've got tons of production shops that might not fit, fall into that category. But more so than not, you are going to have tons of shops and also end customers and everything else that are going to request all kinds of different coatings. And if you want to deliver those, jump into the urethane world. You know?
Well, and not only that, but sometimes people don't know what they want until you show them. You know what I mean? All right, so one other thing that I wanna bring up that we've talked about, and that's been just a headache for me over the years and a headache for a lot of guys, is dark colors. Okay. Everybody knows, whether it be pre-cat or whatever, the headaches of like things being translucent or taking forever to dry, or it reduces the durability of the coating. Why don't you talk about the advantages of that with the polyurethanes that is a little bit different when you have darker colors?
I would actually say the backbone of a urethane program is the pigmented side. This is where they truly, really excel. I know we could be talking about clear coats and stuff, and we talk about the benefits and the features, but when it comes to just a standard painted finish, they excel even more. And we'll talk about how, first of all, just in the application procedures, your primers are going to have just tons of solids in them, normally twice the amount of even a standard conversion varnish primer. So that alone is just going to fill that much faster, make you get your base coats on better and have a better foundation to work off of. So that alone is the first part that excels. Just get your base coats there better. Now we're talking about color on the top, whether it be white or an off-white or a very dark color. If you're doing whites and off-whites, great. They're going to perform awesome. You'll get one coat coverage. You're going to have a nice uniform color all throughout. And the same thing will happen when you get to the darker colors. Now, the difference is when you get to those darker colors, the colorants that are used within a urethane system are completely different than your standard tints that are used for tinting conversion varnish and precats. These colorants have resins and binders in them, which will actually cross-link with the coating. So when I'm doing a bold red, forest green, or a very dark color, when I spray that out, I'm actually going to get one coat coverage. Even if it was over a white primer, you're going to see just a huge bold red come right onto that panel. But that is because, A, we can put a much larger pigment load into the product and not lose any of the integrity of the coating, because, again, all the colorants are cross-linking with it. It's very similar. The best comparison is when you see people painting cars, because it's very similar technology. But they're using automotive urethanes, and a lot of people have seen it. They'll see like a candy apple red or something, and it's this beautiful, wow, this color going on these panels, and it's like, wow, how do I get that? Urethane. That's how you get it. Pretty much that simple. You get it with urethane. That's one of the great capabilities of it. So if anybody listening, yes, if colors, bold colors, things like that are things that you do fairly regular, absolutely check out the urethanes, because that is something that's just going to make your life just so easy at that point. Definitely The pigmented system, backbone of polyurethanes, 100%.